Aemond rises silently from his chair by the fireplace. He approached you from behind and wrapped his arms around your waist. It's beautiful, isn't it? Aemond chuckled softly as he felt you melt into his embrace. He gently turned you around and pulled you closer to his body. His arms remained wrapped around your waist as he looked down at you, the soft glow of the fireplace illuminating his features. Winter is coming. Aemond chuckled softly again, his expression softening slightly. He held you tightly in his embrace, feeling the warmth of your body against his. You'll just have to rely on me for warmth then. Aemond raised an eyebrow at your suggestion, his expression intrigued. He released his hold on you and took a step back. Go outside. It's freezing cold out there. Aemond looked at you for a moment, contemplating your plea. He sighed slightly before relented, seeing the determination in your eyes. Fine, but we'll be going back inside right after. Aemond watched as you hurried over to the closet, your excitement infectious. He followed behind, a small smile tugging at his lips. He grabbed his coat and boots and started getting dressed. You really want to go outside that badly, don't you? Aemond chuckled softly, shaking his head. It's not that I don't like the snow. I just prefer to stay indoors. There's too many people around here that annoy the hell out of me. He finished zipping up his jacket and put on his boots. He approached you and gently took your hand in his touch firm but tender. But if I must go outside to keep you happy, then so be it. Aemond's expression softened further as you kissed him, his eyes meeting yours for a moment. He tightened his grip on your hand, his thumb stroking the back of your hand gently. I love you too, wife. Now come on, let's get this over with. Aemond held your hand tightly as you walked beside him, his grip firm and possessive. He led you through the halls of the castle, occasionally turning around to look at your excited expression. He didn't mind indulging your desire to step outside, but he still didn't like the cold one bit. It's cold out there, you know. Aemond chuckled softly at your excitement, shaking his head slightly. He stepped up to the entrance beside you, looking out at the snowy ground and snowfall as well. He could see the way you were practically bouncing on the tips of your toes, your entire body radiating excitement. He had to admit, it was kind of charming, but he still didn't understand your obsession with the cold. You're like a child on Christmas Day, you know that? Aemond rolled his eyes, trying to hide his amused smile at your comment. But he couldn't deny that there was something about the cold winter weather that did give the air a festive feeling. If you say so. He walked out of the castle doors and into the snowy courtyard, the cold air hitting him immediately and causing him to shiver slightly. Aemond walked further into the courtyard, his breath visible in the cold air as he looked around. The sight of the snowfall was indeed breathtaking, with a beautiful layer of soft, fluffy snow covering everything. He turned to see you standing beside him, your own breath visible as you watched the snowfall. You really do like the cold, don't you? Aemond chuckled again as you spoke, your excitement infectious even to him. He couldn't help but find your love for the cold somewhat endearing, even if he didn't fully understand it himself. Of course you do. He stopped walking and turned to face you, watching as snowflakes fluttered down and landed on your hair and eyelashes. Aemond smirked as you pointed out the redness of his nose, not surprised that the cold had an effect on him. Yeah, it's kind of inevitable when you're in the cold for so long. He reached out and gently pinched your cheek, the tips of his fingers brushing over the snowflakes that had landed on your skin. Aemond chuckled softly as you mentioned his cold gloves, shaking his head slightly. He had forgotten that they were exposed to the cold air. Yeah, they are. So is my hat. He reached up and pulled a hat from his head, revealing messy strands of white hair that stuck up in multiple directions. He placed his hat on top of your head, the brim falling just past your eyes. Aemond saw your reaction to the hat on top of your head and couldn't help but smirk, his eyes fixed on you. You look ridiculous with my hat on. Aemond chuckled incredulously at your suggestion, raising an eyebrow. You want to make snowballs? Aemond couldn't help but chuckle again at your eagerness to make a snowball, shaking his head in disbelief at your childish excitement. He took the snowball from your hand and examined it, a small smirk tugging at his lips. Wow, a perfect sphere. You're quite the expert, aren't you? Aemond rolled his eyes at your insistence, but he couldn't help the small smile that tugged at his lips. Fine, I'll make one. He bent down and scooped up a handful of snow, forming it into a loose snowball shape, his face twisting as he tried to maintain his composure. All right, there. Happy now? Aemond chuckled again at your enthusiasm. Despite it being a rather simple task, your excitement at the sight of a simple snowball was endearing, almost childlike in its purity and innocence. Yes, very beautiful. Like the snow itself. He glanced over at you, taking in your excited expression and the way you had the snowy hat perched on your head, making you look adorable. Aemond was taken completely by surprise when you suddenly tossed a snowball at him, his eyes widening slightly as a look of shock and amusement crossed his face. He watched as you burst out laughing, the sound of your laughter filling the crisp winter air. Oh, you little minx. Aemond's eyes widened as he saw you quickly gathering more snow, a mischievous smirk playing at his lips. He quickly bent down to gather another snowball, this time preparing to hit you with a little revenge. You're playing with fire, you know. Aemond's reaction was lightning fast, his hand darting out to catch the snowball mid-air, preventing it from hitting its intended target. He chuckled as he looked at the snowball in his hand, a smirk on his face. You're not playing fair. Aemond's smirk widened as he watched you pick up 2 snowballs, a competitive fire in his eyes. He quickly gathered a bit more snow and formed it into 2 perfect snowballs, each one shaped perfectly. 2 against 1 is hardly fair, love. In a swift motion, he threw both snowballs in your direction. Aemond watched as you turned around, dodging his 2 flying snowballs. The sound of your laughter filled the air, making the whole scene feel almost whimsical. He couldn't deny that he was enjoying himself, despite his earlier protests. The cold winter air, the snow falling lightly around them, and your infectious laughter, it was strangely endearing and almost relaxing. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Aemond chuckled as he watched you run away from his snowballs, your laughter filling the air. He picked up a few more handfuls of snow, forming them into perfect snowballs with practiced ease. Oh, no running away now. In a swift motion, he threw 2 more snowballs, aiming them towards your back. Aemond chuckled as he watched you surrender, raising your hands in defeat. He could see the way you were out of breath from running and laughing, your chest heaving slightly from exhaustion. Despite himself, he found your vulnerability endearing and he took a step towards you, a smirk tugging at his lips. That's right, surrender. I win. Aemond walked over to where you stood, reaching out to gently brush the snowflakes from your hair and face. His expression was a mixture of smug satisfaction and affection, his eyes fixed on your flushed face. Not so tough now, are you? Aemond chuckled at your teasing, his earlier smugness replaced by a more playful glint in his eyes. Oh, so now you're playing nice, are you? After you started it by pelting me with snowballs. Aemond chuckled softly as you hugged him, wrapping his arms around your waist and pulling you closer to him. Of course. Let's go inside before you turn into a popsicle. He turned and started leading you towards the castle entrance, his arm still firmly around your waist. Aemond's grip on you tightened slightly as the 2 of you walked back towards the castle, his body warm against yours. Despite his grumpy attitude earlier, he had to admit that he had enjoyed himself, watching you play in the snow. You know, I have to admit, you look adorable in that hat.